There is a lot of what ifs in the Army. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I fail this? What if I do that? A lot of times people ask me these questions, what if this or what if that? And I try to give the best answers that I can. And maybe some of these what if questions are questions that you want to know the answers to. Well, that's what I want to facilitate in this video, and that video starts right now. So sometimes I receive some questions, maybe in the comment sections of my videos, maybe someone direct messages me on social media, especially like on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, links down in the description box down below. Make sure you follow me. I do respond to direct messages if you want to DM me, but there are a lot of what if questions that sometimes I get. People asking me what if this happens or what if that happens. So in this video, I've gathered up quite a few of them. There's probably room for me to do a lot more, especially if you have a specific what if question that I don't answer in this video. Drop that down in the comment section down below, and maybe we'll do a second volume 2 of this video type of thing. But nonetheless, I've got quite a few what ifs, and we're gonna start that off in this video with the ones that I've got. So let's get into some what if questions. What if I wanna join the United States Army, but I'm not a US citizen and I don't live in the United States? Well, the first thing you're gonna have to accomplish is you're gonna have to move to the United States. A lot of people message me, send me questions about joining the Army and how it's a lifelong goal of theirs, dream of theirs, and they live in X country, whatever country they live in, and they wanna join the United States military. Well, it's not the world military, it's the United States military. So it's specifically for individuals that are US residents that live in the United States. So if you're in this scenario, first up, you got to move to the United States. You have to be a US resident, a legal US resident, which means you have to have a green card and have an address in the United States. You have to be living in the United States to be able to go talk to those recruiters in person. So that's the first part of that. Now, you don't have to be a US citizen for all jobs in the Army. Typically, if there is a job that requires something like a security clearance, then you probably need to be a US citizen. But for other jobs, they don't require US citizenship because they don't require a security clearance. So you might be able to get some of those jobs. Now, there are other requirements that go along with being in the Army. Simply just living in the United States doesn't mean you automatically can join the Army. You still have to meet other criterias, but that's one of the first steps you're gonna need to do if you're living in another country. So move from your other country to the United States. If that's something you're trying to go after, you may or may not have to get a US citizenship depending on what job you want. Sometimes you can just simply join as a green card holder, but if you want to get a certain job, like especially like officers as well, then that typically means you're gonna have to get US citizenship. What if I fail the ASVAB? Well, don't worry, there are chances for you to just retake it. If you fail the ASVAB, typically you have to wait, I think it's 30 days before you can retake it again. Also, sometimes people want to do this because they didn't score well enough on the ASVAB to get the MOS or get the job that they are looking to get, so they retake it then. But typically, it's a 30-day waiting period, somewhere around there, before you'll be eligible to be able to retake the ASVAB. Now, there does come a certain point where if you failed it multiple times or you're trying to retake it multiple times to get a higher score, I think it's after 3 or something like that, then the waiting period increases and it's a little bit longer. So you have to talk to a recruiter about that type of scenario, but nonetheless, just study real hard, practice really good, so that way, hopefully you can pass it the first time and get a great score and get the MOS you want, get the job you want. But if you do fail it, you can keep retaking it. What if I change my mind about joining the Army and I haven't shipped off to basic training yet? Technically, from information I've heard from some recruiters or other individuals, you're actually not really in the Army until you actually step off that bus to basic training. You start basic training, then yeah, you're being processed, you're in the Army. But if you're still at home waiting for your ship date and you get cold feet, you change your mind type of thing, technically, from what I understand, you can just tell your recruiter, hey, sorry, things came up, I want to do something else, I don't want to join the Army, take me off your list, whatever, and you'll be okay. You might get some crap about it, but you're not legally going to be like, have a warrant out for you. They're not going to come banging on your door and try to like tie you up and take you to basic training. Because like I said, technically you're not in the Army until you step off that bus and you start the in-processing to process you into the Army, technically. Now, will you still be able to join the military after doing something like that? That may depend. I mean, you may end up on some kind of list where they're like, hey, don't let this person try to join the military in the future, right? That may eliminate you from being able to join, but it's not like they're gonna go and put you on a dishonorable discharge and now you can't get a job because your record shows that you didn't ship off to basic training type of thing. Technically, you were never in the Army in the first place because you didn't actually show up to basic training to start the in-processing, to start your training and everything else like that. So technically, you were never in the Army in the first place. What if I fail basic training? Well, there's a number of things that could possibly happen in that kind of scenario. Typically, there's different things, different tasks you'll have to do in basic training that you have to pass. And if you fail them, then technically, usually you get like a second try, maybe even a third, fourth, fifth try. It really just depends on leadership as far as how many attempts they're gonna kind of give you before circumstances or other kind of actions start to happen. But let's say, for example, the Army combat fitness test or weapons qualification or something else that you have to pass and you don't pass it, typically they're going to probably give you another opportunity to try to pass it. They usually want to do some kind of corrective actions to find out, hey, was this individual not in good enough shape to be able to pass the ACFT? Were they not getting enough practice to be able to pass weapons qualification? Whatever. Let's try to do some kind of remedial training, try to correct that action, and give them another chance to try to do better the next time. Hopefully the next time you pass, but if you fail again, well, then it really depends on leadership as far as how long they want to have that keep going on before they're eventually going to say, hey, you're not fit for being in the Army. You can't pass the fitness test. You can't pass this. You can't pass that, whatever. We're going to have to chapter you out. We're going to have to give you a general discharge, which basically makes it to where you never even served in the military. You don't qualify for any military benefits, none of that kind of veteran benefits or anything else like that. Can you come back in the Army at a later point in time? Maybe, depending on what kind of code they give you for that, but they're gonna, kick you out of the Army essentially. But that usually happens after like multiple attempts and you failed all of them. I was someone in a similar situation. I mean, I passed eventually because obviously I wouldn't have been in the Army, but I took my first physical fitness test and I failed it. But after a little bit of remedial training, getting a little bit better shape, the next time the fitness test came around, I passed it. So they give you maybe another second chance and maybe even multiple chances after that before they're gonna start coming down on you to possibly look at kicking you out of the Army. What if I fail AIT? Well, that's a little bit different than if you fail something in basic training. Sort of similar, they are probably gonna give you another chance because if you failed the fitness test, you failed a written test or some other kind of physical test or something else that's related to your job that you're doing in AIT in your advanced individual training, then they're probably going to give you another opportunity to try to pass that. I had a situation like that as well where I failed one of the written tests. There was a written test in my AIT. I failed it, so I had to retake it later on, and I passed it the second time around. Sometimes it does have some kind of consequences to it. Like for example, in my situation, because I failed that written test, there was a weekend coming up pretty soon, and individuals that passed all their tests up to that point got a weekend pass. So that means they got to go off post for that weekend and go do whatever they wanted to do. Because I didn't pass all of my tests up to that point, I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to stay on base. I had to stay in the barracks area. But similar to when I was talking about basic training, if you fail a certain event type of thing, you might get a second attempt, maybe a third attempt, maybe a fifth attempt, or whatever the leadership wants to do before they're gonna have to take actions. Now, a little bit different than basic training, where in basic training, after a lot of failures or whatever the case is, they may want to kick you out of the Army. In AIT, they're probably gonna make you change jobs. Now, you don't usually get to pick what that job is going to be. If you were trying to be EOD, right, and you couldn't pass that crazy bomb suit test that you have to go through, right, and you failed it multiple times, they're gonna be like, look, you couldn't pass this, we're gonna find something that's a little bit easier, not quite as hard to be able to pass. That may end up being a cook, maybe infantry, maybe something else, and also based on needs of the Army. They're gonna look at, hey, this is easier, and the Army is in desperate need for individuals in this job. We're really short on individuals in this job. You're going off to this job. If you don't like it, too bad, you should have passed. Kind of the consequences of not being able to pass AIT. That's the job you wanted, but if you can't meet those requirements, you don't qualify to be in that MOS, well, you're still under contract in the United States Army, so now we're gonna put you in a different MOS that we need you in, that we feel like maybe you can pass. Maybe if you were to fail that one, maybe then they would kind of look at kicking you out of the Army type of thing, but if you failed AIT after multiple attempts to try to pass it and you couldn't do that, then they're probably gonna change your MOS on you to something that they want you in. What if I wanna go airborne or another school in the United States Army and I'm already at my first unit? Some individuals, you try to get, airborne or something else in your contract to be able to get that right out the gate. In your initial training, you go off to airborne school or whatever school, and cool, you get that. And if you can't get that, then you have to try to get it from your first unit. When you go off to your first unit, well, it's gonna be a little bit challenging because for one, if it's not necessary, it's not a high priority for you to get that schooling. Let's say in the common example, airborne school, then they're probably not going to send you. If you're not in an airborne unit, it's just something cool you want to do because you thought it'd be awesome, and you're in a unit that's not an airborne unit, you're not going to be very high priority for them to want to send you to airborne school. You can have situations where they will, maybe situations where they've got some slots and then they need to send some people off to it for whatever reason type of thing. Maybe if you extend your contract, you got to the end of your contract, you were there at that unit for a while, and it's time to re-enlist, and you said in your contract, if I'm going to re-enlist, I want to go to airborne school, then you might get it. But you just showed up to your unit, you didn't get a chance to get airborne school, you're not in an airborne unit, you're not very high priority, they're probably not going to send you. So it becomes challenging if it's not a requirement. If it's not a necessity, not something that's going to benefit that unit, they're probably not going to send you to that school. Other schools that may be outside of that kind of realm is like, you want to go to Ranger, right? You're going to be switching off to another unit in the first place. So if you try to request that and they have slots to be able to send people off to go to the Ranger Assessment and Selection, to RASP, to actually go to the 75th Ranger Regiment, not Ranger School, but the 75th Ranger Regiment for RASP, then they might be able to do that. Or if you want to go Special Forces to go SFAS, then they might be able to send you off to that type of thing. But other schools, like you just simply want to be airborne. Air assault might be a little bit easier to do because air assault, there's no, you don't have to be in a specific unit to be air assault, but that's sometimes also going to go priority to individuals that have been in the unit for a little while longer, that maybe have proven themselves. Sometimes they do like a competition, whoever can score the best on the fitness test, because they want to make sure that you're not going to go off to the school just to fail the fitness test, right? So sometimes there's a lot of other things that kind of get factored in there. What if you or someone you know is in the Army but not subscribed to Christopher Chaos? Well, you're probably missing out on a lot of great content to help you out before you join, while you're in, after you get out, all sorts of stuff. So don't be in that situation. Just hit that subscribe button right now. It's right there. Just click it. It's an easy action. So just click on that button and join the notification platoon as well by clicking on that bell and get all alerts. That way you're informed when new videos drop. What if I'm in the Army and I have a family member pass away? Well, then typically you would go on what's called emergency leave. So usually they have different policies at the unit as far as how they want to go about activating that to get you on emergency leave, right? It usually means that maybe they want an official message from the Red Cross to be sent to the leadership to let them know that, hey, this family member passed away. Maybe they want some other kind of, individual to reach out to them to give them confirmation. Maybe they trust you enough and they're like, okay, we're gonna take your word for it. But at a lot of units, a lot of different locations, they may want some kind of, something like a Red Cross message or something else to just make sure that you're not an individual that's trying to get out of a deployment, trying to get out of this training to go home for X amount of days and nobody really passed away. So sometimes they want some kind of authorization from like the Red Cross to say, yes, we verified that this person's family member passed away, or some other kind of means to authorize that. Emergency leave will allow you to be able to go home for X amount of days to be able to, maybe be with someone because they're, in critical condition, maybe to attend someone's funeral type of thing. They don't typically pay to send you back home, but they do have other programs that can assist you. So if you are short on money, you can't afford the plane ticket for whatever reason, then you would want to talk to your leadership about some of these Army programs that can assist you to help you be able to get that plane ticket, to be able to get back home, to be able to attend that funeral or to be with that loved one. What if I join the Army as a single soldier, but then later get married? Well, typically your leadership just needs proof that you got married via that marriage certificate. And once you provide that marriage certificate, that will be able to get you into the system to be able to get BAH and BAS and get you the hell out of the barracks type of thing. So you a lot of times need to talk to your leadership to let them know, hey, I'm planning to get married in the next month, the next couple of weeks, because sometimes they have other kind of factors in there where they want you to get like a counseling to understand some of your benefits and some of the things you need to do as a spouse when you're in the military, all sorts of other programs that are available. So sometimes they want you to go through this little counseling kind of session type of thing to be aware of everything before you go get married. But nonetheless, I don't believe they can stop you from getting married. But it's always best to, not ruffle any feathers and let your leadership know, hey, I'm planning to get married here in the next month or 2 months or whatever type of thing, and just give them the heads up. And then once you get married, give them that copy of that marriage certificate so that way you can get all those benefits that you get for being married while in the military. What if I get married to another soldier? Well, if you get married to another soldier, you got to make sure that it's not someone probably in your platoon possibly that, cause fraternization, someone that's not probably higher or lower ranking than you as far as like you're an officer and they're a lower enlisted, or you're a non-commissioned officer and they're a private, because then that's fraternization. But let's say in the scenario that, it's someone in a different company, maybe a different platoon, someone that's not within your chain of command and not something where like you're a private and they're a captain or something crazy like that. then that's completely fine. You can do that. What happens with that kind of scenario though is kind of similar to, when you want to get married. You gotta let your leadership know type of thing. You're gonna need that, marriage certificate to prove that you're married so that you can get in the system to receive those benefits. But the higher ranking individual is gonna receive full BAH and BAS, whereas the lower ranking individual is only gonna receive half BAH. That BAH, which is the money you get for like your housing. Why? I'm not really 100% sure why they do it this way, but nonetheless, higher ranking individuals getting that full basic allowance for housing, and that lower ranking individual is only going to get half of that basic allowance for housing. They usually do also try to keep you stationed together, so if one comes up on orders, then the other person is probably going to come up on orders too, to keep you stationed together. You probably aren't going to put you in the same unit, and maybe they do, maybe they don't, but at a minimum, they usually try to keep you together. So if we have one individual that's going to get stationed at Fort Carson, and you're currently at Fort Riley, then the other person should come up on orders too, so that way both of you will go to the same duty station. Now, like I said, I probably can do a ton more. I got a couple other questions that were in here that I didn't get a chance to get to because the video is getting pretty lengthy. So make sure you comment down below if you would like to see some more videos like this type of one. Maybe you have your own what if question that you can ask down in the comment section down below. So make sure you're asking those comments down below, asking those questions, whatever you got in the comment section anyways. Make sure you're checking out the links down in the description box down below, but don't go taking off just yet. I got a video right here that you need to go watch. Just go watch it, okay? Trust me, you need to watch this. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.